Big Baby by Jack Sharkey. Part 5. "What's this? What's this?" rasped Jerry's mind. "Where have I gotten to now?" "It's all right," said a soothing voice. "You're with me now." "Oh, oh," Jerry's mind said, snickering. "And who might you be?" It was dark as he looked out through the alien eyes, but a quick patting of his paw across his face reassured him that his sharp white incisors, muzzle, and stiff gray whiskers were intact and healthy. "How can I be you?" asked Jerry. "If I'm a gray rat and you're a gray rat, what am I doing here?" "You've come to spy on me, I know," said the soothing voice. "But see, you have nothing to fear, nothing at all. I'm not going to hurt you. You find no menace in me, do you?" "No, no menace, no danger. I'm safe, I'm secure, I'm warm and loved." "Relax," said the alien. "Relax and let me have full control again. You can sleep if you do. You can rest. I'll take care of you. Trust in that." "Yes, sleep, rest. No more running, hiding, fearing," said Jerry Norcris, the gray rat mind in the invisible body of another rat, much like himself. "Come on with that flashlight, damn it!" Bob raged, leading the other 3 crewmen through the woods. 2 of them carried rifles, 1 had a flamethrower, and Bob himself carried one of the new bazookas with a potent, short-range atomic warhead. Ollie, the man with the light, hurried up to him with a quick apology. Okay, Bob said, "but I've got to see this dial. Yes, this is the way all right. Come on, Ollie, keep that beam so it spills on the tracking cone dial as well as on the Earth. We don't dare risk losing our way. There are only 7 minutes left until contact is broken." "Yes, sir, I'll keep it right on there," Ollie said. "But about the lieutenant, are you sure he won't?" "That's what the stopwatch is for. We must strike just as contact is being broken. Any sooner, and we kill Lieutenant Norcris with the alien. Any later, and the alien kills us, the same way it did the others who came upon it." "But what does it do? What does it look like?" Ollie persisted. "Damn it, there's no time to talk now. Just keep that light steady and hurry." The men plunged onward through the woods, the white circle of light from the arc torch splashing the cold leaves and damp, colorless grass with sickly, stark illumination. "If you would only release your hold," the alien was saying. Then its mind voice stopped. Jerry, too, had seen the dancing white freckles that spattered the boles and branches of the nearby trees. The darkness of the woods was rent by streamers of ruler-straight light beams. They began to radiate like luminous wheel spokes through the tangled leaves of the wood. "Men!" cried the alien mind. "Men are coming here! Men, our enemies!" Jerry, still in partial control of the invisible rat body, fought the flight impulse that began to stir beneath the unseen skin. "Run!" shrieked the alien mind. "You fool, can't you see that we must flee this place? Quickly, or we are done for!" "Run, flee," Jerry said dully within the alien mind. "Yes, run from men, the eternal enemy, men. Run, hide, a dark corner, under a bush, behind a tree." He felt his own mind joining that of the alien in the preliminary tension that comes before flight. Then the glaring beam of the arc torch was full in his eyes, and the hypnotic illusion at this, the trigger of his psyche, was shattered. And Jerry once again knew himself to be a man. A man in the body of a rat, the animal which Jerry Norcris loathed most of all creatures. "Run!" screamed the alien. "Why don't you—" Its commands ceased as it realized the difference within the mind that had invaded its body. "You again!" it cried, trying wildly to reassume the placid, plump image of that unseen baby once more. "You're too late," said Jerry, fighting its will with his own as the crewman broke from the underbrush into the clearing, and the tech, pointing straight at him, yelled a caution to the man with the flamethrower. The man bringing up the terrible gaping mouth of that weapon halted, waiting, as the tech stared at the stopwatch in his hand. 5 seconds, cried the tech. 4, 3, 2, 1. Get it, quick! Jerry, still within the mind, and watching with the same horrified fascination as his host, saw the puff of flame within the flame tube of the weapon, then saw the insane red flower blossoming with its smoking yellow tendrils toward his face. And the silent white lightning flared, and he sat up on the couch back in the solarium. Jaina hurried over to him. "Did it work? Did it work, sir?" she cried. "Is Bob—" Jerry patted her hand. "Bob's all right. He was on time. Just on time." "I still don't understand, sir," said the nurse, sinking onto the couch beside him without waiting for an invitation. "I don't understand any of this." For an instant, Jerry resented this familiarity, then felt slightly overstuffed and slipped an arm paternally across her slim shoulders. "I'll explain," he said. "It'll pass the time till he gets back." Jaina nodded. "The alien," Jerry said softly, "was a mimic, a perfect mimic. It was, while non-intelligent, of an abnormally well-developed mind in one function: telepathy. That's how it could carry on apparently intelligent mental conversation with me during my first contact. It could sense my questions, then probe my mind for the answers I wanted most to hear, and play them back to me. For my 40 minutes of contact, it told me only what I wanted to know, like a selective echo. It needed no understanding of my questions, nor of the answers it plucked from my mind. It had one instinct: self-preservation. It could sense my question, select an uncontroversial answer from my mind, and feed it back to me, without really understanding how it warded me off as a menace to it, any more than a dog understands why lowering its ears and hanging its head as it whines can fend off the wrath of its master. It works. That's all the creature cares about." "But how did you know?" Jaina asked. "I didn't," Jerry replied. "It fooled me completely, until the ensign, Bob, told me that my full 40 minutes in contact had elapsed, despite my knowledge that the sun and clouds had remained motionless during my contact. That threw me, I'll admit, for quite a while. It just didn't make sense." Jaina's eyes widened as she suddenly understood. "And then you realized that you had seen the sun and clouds motionless because that was what you expected to experience when enhosted in a baby." "That's it," Jerry nodded. "It made an error with the baby, though. It was able to duplicate it in almost every respect, except 2: size and appearance." "Why?" asked Jaina. "And why appear as a baby at all?" "I'm coming to that," said Jerry. "The size was off because the first thing I saw when I blinked open my eyes was a distant copse of trees, which I took to be an upright pile of leafy twigs. Since my mind possessed information regarding the relative size of babies and twigs, the alien immediately made sure my mind saw other things in the same perspective. By the time it realized it had made an error, it was too late to normalize the baby's dimensions. That would have given its fakery away." "But why did the thing choose a baby?" "Because that was the thing's protection. It had a powerful hypnotic power, one that worked on its victims' minds directly through its telepathic interference with sensory perception. It always appeared as the thing the victim would be least likely to harm, in my case, the baby. But it made a slight error there, too. I'm a bachelor, Jaina. There's only one baby with whom I ever had any great amount of experience. Myself.
And the invisibility?
I have no recollection, even now, of my body when I was a baby. I may have stared at my toes, played with my fingers, but they just never registered on my consciousness as being part of myself. So the thing was stuck when it came to reproducing me visually, since it depended upon my own memory for details. But it was able to supply the way I'd felt as a baby. Every baby has an acute awareness of its own skin. It will cry if any particle of its flesh is bothered in the slightest. So the alien fed the feel of my baby body back to me, if not the view. Which is why the electronic brain on the ship was able to duplicate the detail into an almost perfect replica of my babyhood likeness.
Jaina nodded as she finally understood the meaning of that strange illusion. And this time? That post-hypnotic suggestion you had the doctor give you? I mean, that you'd think you were a gray rat until such time as the light of the arc torch caught you directly in the eyes?
Duplicity, Jaina. It had to be that way. The alien was very sure of its powers. If I returned, and it were a baby again, I couldn't attack it or thwart its ends, and such an attack was necessary. I had to be able to fight it, to hold it in place for that last moment before it was destroyed. Which is why I chose a gray rat, an animal I cannot bear the sight of. When the light struck my eyes and I became myself again, I caught the alien unawares. Then, before it could change to a baby and start lulling me back into camaraderie, it was too late. Bob had given the order to fire, and here I am.
Hurrying footsteps sounded in the corridor. The door burst open and Bob rushed in, his face anxious and creased with worry until he saw Jerry sitting on the couch, alive and well.
Whoosh!
The tech expelled a mingled chuckle and sigh as he sank into a chair opposite the zoologist.
Well, sir, I can't tell you how glad I am to see you. I couldn't be sure you'd gotten out of that thing alive until I got back here. Glad you made it, sir. Damn glad.
That thing you mentioned, said Jerry. What did it actually look like? Bob jerked his head toward the corridor.
Well, the other guys are bringing it along. I kind of thought you'd want a peep at it.
As more footfalls were heard from the corridor, Bob bounced to his feet again and stepped to the door.
Hold it a minute, guys,
he said, then turned back into the room.
Jane, I don't think you'd better stick around for this. It's not very pretty.
The girl hesitated, then flashed him a smile and shook her head. I'll stay. It can't look as ugly as a bad case of peritonitis on the surgeon's table. If I can take that without upchucking, I can take anything. Bob shrugged.
Suit yourself, honey. Just remember, you got fair warning.
He leaned back out the door.
Okay, bring it in.
The crewmen, looking a little ill, came slowly into the room bearing a bloated, scorched object on a stretcher they'd contrived from two long poles and their jackets. They set it onto the tiled floor before the zoologist, then stepped away, all of them wiping their hands hard against their trousers in ludicrous unison, though their grip on the poles had not brought them into actual contact with the alien's corpse.
There it is, sir, said Ollie Gibbs, and you are very welcome to it.
Jaina, to her credit, had not upchucked, but she went a shade paler and her mouth grew tight. Jerry studied the burnt husk from its sharp-fanged mouth, easily 18 inches from side to side, to its stubby centipedal cilia under the grossly swollen body.
Damn thing's all bloat, slime, and mouth, said the tech,
suddenly shuddering. I wonder if its victims felt those jaws rending them open, or if it kept their minds fooled through to the end. "I don't think we'll ever know that, Ensign," said Jerry, "unless you feel like going out there and playing victim to one of this thing's confreres." "No, thanks, sir," said Bob, so swiftly that Jaina laughed. "I'd rather fall out an airlock in hyperspace." "Well, here's what we do to get rid of this thing, then," said Jerry. "Since it assumes a form that's the least likely to be harmed by whatever presence stimulates its mimetic senses, we'll have to trick it. Before this thing decomposes too far, rig it up with an electrical charge and stimulate its nerve centers artificially. That ought to give you an accurate microtape of its life pulse. Then hook the tape to a scanner beam and send the life pulse into the mine area. When the fellows of this creature react to it, they'll assume the safest possible form, their own." "I get you, sir," said Bob. "Then all the miners have to do is see it for what it is and shoot it." Jerry nodded. "It'll mean all miners will have to go armed for a while, but that's better than getting eaten alive by one of these." "You're sure their presence won't trigger the thing's mimetic power?" asked Bob uneasily. "Not if you give full power to the scanner beam," Jerry replied. "It'll muffle their life pulse radiations under the brunt of the artificial one." "Good enough, sir," said Bob. "I'll rig it right away." Jerry shook his head. "No need. You could use some rest, I'm sure. The morning will be soon enough. Meantime, you can see this young lady home. The rest of you," he said to the hovering crewmen, "are dismissed too." The men, eager to be away from the thing, saluted smartly and hurried out of the solarium, buzzing with wordy relief. Jaina paused a moment, staring at the creature whose strange powers had destroyed her father. Then she turned to Bob. "I think I'll go to Jim's place," she said. "I want him to know." She moved her gaze to Jerry. "I owe you a lot," she said. "We all owe you a lot." Embarrassed by the warmth of her praise, Jerry could only mumble something diffident and look the other way. He was taken quite by surprise by the pressure of cool, moist lips against the side of his face. When he looked back at the pair, Bob and Jaina were on their way out the door. "So you'll never know which one kissed you." No. Only when he heard the elevator doors at the end of the corridor close behind them did he move to the still warm corpse of his one-time adversary, with a look of deepest compassion on his face. "Well," he said gently, "you've lost. The planet goes back to the invaders. Once again, Earth has successfully obliterated the opposition." He reached out a hand and touched the hulking thing on the floor. "Goodbye," he said. "And I'm sorry." Jerry Norquist wasn't thinking about the deadliness of the thing, nor of the deaths of the hapless miners, nor of the billions of dollars he'd saved the investors holding Praesodynamium stock. He was thinking of a voice that, even unintelligently, even in the course of deception, had said, "Poor Jerry, rest, relax, you're safe, secure." "You really had me going for a while, baby," he said, then blinked at the sudden sharp sting in his eyes and hurried from the room. Outside, the sun was glowing pink against the black eastern sky, and the air was cool and fresh in his nostrils. As he crossed the street from the hospital, heading toward the landing field and his shipboard bunk, a hurrying figure from the end of the block caught up with him and began to pace his stride, panting slightly. "Talk about happy," said Bob glumly. "When Jaina told her boyfriend the news, they went into such a clinch I didn't even stick around to be introduced. Seemed a nice enough guy, I guess. Hope she'll be happy with him." Jerry recognized the gloominess of the tech's mood and its cause, so didn't say anything. After a moment, Bob seemed to recover himself a little. "Sir," he said, "there's one thing that still bugs me about this alien." "Oh?" said Jerry, halting. "What's that, Ensign?" "How'd the initial robo-rocket miss the thing and its kind when it circled the planet before colonization began?" "That's a moot question," said Jerry. "But my conjecture is that the scanner always caught it when it was assuming some other form. Since its victims were always indigenous to this planet, the things familiar to them were also of this planet, and the scanner beam couldn't detect any life pulses which were dissimilar to already known species." "I'll be damned," said Bob. "It's almost childishly simple when you explain it." Then, as Jerry went to start off again, Bob stopped him with an exclamation. "What about that melting mine car I read about on the translation sheets? Was that for real or wasn't it?" Jerry shook his head. "Part of the general mimetic illusion, like the motionless clouds and unmoving trees. It let me see what I expected to see. In reality, I was just in the woods near the mine area where you came upon the creature to destroy it." Jerry started slowly moving away once more. A few steps further, and Bob halted again. "One final point, sir. That life-pulsing reading of .999. If the thing's pulsation was that powerful, I should think it would have been a lot harder to knock off than it was." "You're right," said Jerry. "It would have been, but its life pulse wasn't nearly that high." "But the scanner beam," Bob protested. "When the colony sent up that robo-rocket after those miners vanished, it reported an unknown life pulse of .999. If that wasn't the alien's life pulse, what the devil was it?" Jerry patted Bob on the shoulder. "You're forgetting the mimicry. The robo-rocket they sent up caught the alien off guard, in its own shape, not imitating some other life form's pulsations. It detected the beam, since a scanner picks up mental pulses, and it instantly assumed the life pulse of a creature it assumed no robo-rocket would worry about." "What? What life pulse, sir? What kind of life?" "Atomic life, Ensign," said Jerry. "That bright green blip you and I studied so assiduously was the life pulse of an atom-powered creature. It was another robo-rocket." And as Bob stared after him, stupefied, Jerry Norcross made his way across the landing field toward a well-earned bed and oblivion. Despite the goofy technobabble, I could see a really interesting story here. I mean, just shredding away a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna let it stew and see if anything comes to mind. I mean, you gotta get rid of a lot of the stuff that's just gibberish. But there is something. Particularly if I dick about with genders, too. Anyway, I hope that was entertaining. Sound editing by Barry Howarth.